The laboratory hummed with the soft whir of climate control systems as Zara Nightwind carefully adjusted the spectrometer's calibration. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cool air, her hands trembling slightly as she prepared to analyze the most extraordinary discovery of her career. The sample before her defied everything she thought she knew about xenobiology. "Still here, Zara?" called out Marcus from across the lab. "It's past midnight. Even the most dedicated researchers need sleep." Zara glanced up, pushing a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "Just finishing up the preliminary analysis. This sample, Marcus, it's unlike anything we've ever encountered." Her colleague approached, his footsteps echoing in the nearly empty research facility. The Kepler station orbited Neptune's moon Triton, humanity's most advanced xenobiological research outpost. Here, scientists studied specimens from across the galaxy, but nothing had prepared them for what the deep space probe Meridian had brought back from the Veil Nebula. "The readings are impossible," Zara continued, her voice filled with wonder and apprehension. "The cellular structure appears to be both organic and quantum mechanical simultaneously. It's as if the boundaries between matter and energy mean nothing to this organism." Marcus peered over her shoulder at the holographic display. The sample appeared as a silvery, opalescent liquid that seemed to move with purpose, despite being contained in a stasis field. Occasionally, patterns of light would dance through its depths, almost like neural pathways firing. "The preliminary scans suggest it contains encoded information," Zara explained, her fingers dancing across the control interface. "Not DNA or RNA as we understand it, but something far more complex. It's like a biological quantum computer." "Sounds dangerous," Marcus said, a note of concern creeping into his voice. "Maybe we should wait for the full research team before proceeding." But Zara was already lost in the data streaming across her displays. She had been studying xenobiology for 8 years. Ever since graduating from the Colonial Academy on Mars, she had dedicated her life to understanding alien life forms, driven by a deep curiosity about what lay beyond Earth's pale blue dot. This sample represented everything she had hoped to find proof that life could evolve in ways humanity had never imagined. "Look at this," she whispered, highlighting a section of the molecular analysis. "The sample appears to be reactive to neural activity. When I brought it near the bioscanner, it responded to my brainwave patterns." The implications sent a thrill through her. If the substance could interface with human consciousness, the potential applications were staggering. Enhanced cognitive abilities, direct biological computing, perhaps even communication with truly alien minds. Marcus checked his chronometer. "Zara, I really think we should." An alarm suddenly blared through the station. Emergency lighting bathed the laboratory in pulsing red as the facility's AI announced, "Attention all personnel. Hull breach detected in Section 7. All non-essential personnel report to emergency stations immediately." "That's the docking bay," Marcus said, his face pale in the crimson light. "The Meridian's return probe." Something went wrong. Through the laboratory's viewport, Zara could see the skeletal framework of the docking structure. Atmosphere vented into space in glittering crystals of ice, and she could make out figures in emergency suits working frantically to seal the breach. "The contamination protocols will kick in," Marcus continued, already moving toward the exit. "They'll seal off this entire section until they can determine if anything from the probe posed a biological threat." Zara looked at the sample, still pulsing with its mysterious inner light. The stasis containment would hold for hours, but if the station's emergency protocols activated, everything in this section would be sterilized. Years of potential research would be lost in seconds. "Go," she told Marcus. "Help with the evacuation procedures." "I need to secure the samples. Zara, there's no time. Go." She insisted. "I'll be right behind you." But even as Marcus reluctantly left, Zara knew she was lying. She couldn't leave, not when she was so close to a breakthrough. The sample called to her with an intensity that was almost physical. She could feel its presence in her mind, a gentle whisper of possibilities. Working quickly, she began transferring the most critical data to secure storage drives. The alien substance continued to pulse, and she noticed that its rhythms were synchronizing with her heartbeat. It was definitely reacting to her biological presence. The emergency klaxons grew more insistent, and she could hear the mechanical grinding of blast doors beginning to seal. In minutes, the laboratory would be completely isolated from the rest of the station dot as she worked. Her eyes kept returning to the sample. The silvery liquid seemed to beckon her, and she found herself leaning closer to the containment unit. This close, she could see incredible detail in the substance's structure. It was beautiful, like liquid starlight infused with purpose. "What are you?" she whispered to the sample. "What do you want?" To her amazement, the substance pulsed brighter, as if responding to her question. Patterns of light raced through its depths, forming complex geometries that hurt her eyes to follow. But within those patterns, she sensed meaning. Not words, but something deeper. Intent. Invitation. The blast doors were nearly sealed now. In moments, the sterilization protocol would activate, flooding the laboratory with enough radiation to destroy any biological material, including the sample. Including her, if she remained. Zara stared at the containment unit, her mind racing. She thought of all the years she had spent studying life from distant worlds, always as an observer, never truly connecting. This was her chance to go beyond observation, to truly understand what alien consciousness might be like. Her hands moved to the containment controls almost without her conscious decision. The stasis field flickered and died, leaving only the transparent aluminum barrier between her and the sample. Warning: biological containment compromised. The laboratory's I announced. Sterilization protocol activating in 60 seconds. Zara's heart hammered as she opened the final barrier. The sample sat in its crystalline vial, no longer confined by energy fields. She could feel something emanating from it, now not heat or radiation, but something that resonated with her thoughts, her very consciousness. 40 seconds to sterilization. She lifted the vial with trembling hands. The liquid inside swirled hypnotically, and she could swear whispers in languages that predated human speech. The substance promised knowledge, transformation, a merger of minds across the vast gulf between species. 20 seconds to sterilization. Zara thought of Marcus, of her colleagues, of the life she was about to leave behind. She thought of her parents on Earth, who still believed their daughter was safely conducting routine research. She thought of all the dreams she had harbored about making contact with alien intelligence. 10 seconds. The vial was warm in her hands now, pulsing with sympathetic rhythm to her racing heart. She brought it to her lips, pausing for just a moment to consider the magnitude of what she was about to do. "If you drink this, you'll never be human again," she whispered to herself, echoing warnings from a dozen science fiction stories. But fear had never stopped her before. She had left Earth to study among the stars, had volunteered for the most dangerous research assignments, had dedicated her life to pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. This was simply the ultimate frontier. 5 seconds. Zara tilted the vial back and drank its contents in a single swallow. The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. The liquid fire raced through her bloodstream, carrying with it sensations she had no names for. Her vision exploded into spectrums of light she had never seen. Her hearing expanded to catch whispers of cosmic radiation, and her mind suddenly expanded to accommodate thoughts that weren't entirely her own. She fell to her knees as the transformation began, her body convulsing as every cell restructured itself according to new patterns. But even through the pain, she felt a profound sense of connection, not just to the alien consciousness now merging with her own, but to something vast and beautiful that spanned the galaxy. The sterilization protocol activated, flooding the laboratory with lethal radiation. But Zara no longer feared it. Her body was already adapting, incorporating the alien substance's adaptive capabilities. She felt her DNA rewriting itself, felt new organs forming to process energies that would have killed her moments before. Consciousness faded and returned in waves. She heard a voice that might have been her own, or might have belonged to the entity she was becoming. Welcome to the beginning. When the emergency teams finally breached the sealed laboratory hours later, they found it empty, except for broken equipment and a strange silvery residue that defied analysis. Zara Nightwind had vanished, but something new had been born, something that carried within it the memories of both human ambition and alien wisdom. Somewhere in the hidden depths of the station, this new being was learning to exist in two realities simultaneously, preparing for a journey that would test the very boundaries of what it meant to love across the vast distances between species and worlds. Transformation was complete, but the story was just beginning. 3 months had passed since Zara's transformation, though time itself felt different now. She existed in the abandoned maintenance tunnels of Kepler Station, her body having adapted to survive in the harsh environment between the station's habitable sections. The alien consciousness, which called itself the Confluence, had taught her to process cosmic radiation for sustenance and to phase partially out of normal space-time when detection threatened. She had become something beautiful and terrible. Her skin now held an opalescent quality that shifted between human flesh tones and silvery luminescence. Her eyes contained depths that seemed to hold starlight, and her mind processed information across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. Yet she retained her essential self, her curiosity, her compassion, her deep longing for connection. It was during one of her careful ventures into the station's inhabited areas that she first encountered Kale Voss. The meeting happened in the station's central observatory, a crystalline dome that offered a breathtaking view of Triton's methane geysers and Neptune's swirling storms. Zara had thought the chamber empty during the night cycle, but as she emerged from a maintenance shaft to gaze at the stars, she found she was not alone. A figure stood silhouetted against the cosmic vista, tall, elegant, with an otherworldly grace that immediately set her enhanced senses on alert. As he turned, starlight revealed features that were almost human, but refined beyond terrestrial possibility. High cheekbones that caught the light like carved marble, eyes that held depths of violet fire, and skin that seemed to glow with its own inner radiance. "You're not entirely human anymore, are you?" he asked, his voice carrying musical harmonics that resonated in frequencies both audible and telepathic. Zara's hybrid nature had taught her to sense deception, but she detected none in him, only curiosity tinged with something that might have been hope. "That depends on your definition of human," she replied carefully, ready to phase shift if he proved hostile. He smiled, and the expression transformed his face from merely beautiful to something that made her hybrid heart skip irregularly. "I'm Kale Voss, cultural attaché with the Ethereal Collective's diplomatic mission, though I suspect my credentials matter less than what we both truly are." "And what are we?" Zara asked, though part of her already knew. "Beings caught between worlds, seeking connection across the vast distances that separate species." He stepped closer, and she could sense the careful control he maintained over his own alien nature. "I've been monitoring the station's unusual energy readings. Something extraordinary happened here 3 months ago." Zara studied him, her enhanced perceptions revealing layers of complexity in his being. He was beautiful in the way that stars were beautiful, distant, powerful, potentially dangerous. But beneath the alien perfection, she sensed a loneliness that matched her own. "The Ethereal Collective," she said, accessing memories from the confluence. "Your people are energy beings who occasionally take physical form to interact with matter-based species." Kale nodded, apparently unsurprised by her knowledge. "And you've merged with something from the deep void the consciousness we call the confluence. It chose you as its first human host in over a millennium. They stood in silence for a moment, two beings who had transcended their original forms, studying each other in the starlight. Zara felt a pull toward him that was both physical and metaphysical, her human emotions responding to his beauty, while the confluence recognized a kindred consciousness. "Why are you here?" she asked finally. "The ethereal collective doesn't maintain diplomatic relations with humanity." "They don't," Kale agreed. "But I've been tasked with studying the implications of consciousness merging between species. Your transformation represents something unprecedented, a successful symbiosis that creates something new rather than simply overwhelming the host consciousness." He moved to stand beside her at the observatory's viewing window, careful to maintain distance, while still allowing her to feel the warmth radiating from his form. "May I ask what it's like to be both human and confluence?" Zara considered how to explain the inexplicable. Imagine seeing color for the first time, but the colors exist in dimensions you never knew were there. "I can perceive reality across multiple planes simultaneously, process information at quantum speeds, yet I still remember the taste of chocolate ice cream from my childhood on Mars." "And emotionally?" Kale's voice carried a note of something personal, as if her answer mattered beyond academic curiosity. "That's the strangest part," Zara admitted. "The confluence enhances everything I feel. Joy is more vivid, curiosity burns brighter, loneliness cuts deeper." She turned to look at him directly. "What about you? What's it like to be made of living energy wearing flesh?" Kale was quiet for a long moment, his violet eyes reflecting Neptune's storms. "Constraining. My natural form exists as pure consciousness within electromagnetic fields. This body," he gestured to his physical form, "is like wearing clothes that are simultaneously too tight and too loose. But it allows me to experience sensations my people have forgotten. The feeling of breath in lungs, the weight of gravity, the warmth of physical touch." Something in his tone made Zara's hybrid heart race. "You sound like you enjoy the limitations." "I do," he admitted, his gaze meeting hers. "My people have transcended physical existence for so long that we've forgotten what it means to be anchored to a single moment, a single place. Through this form, I can experience wonder the way matter-based beings do, immediate, visceral, overwhelming." They were standing closer now, though neither could say who had moved first. Zara could feel the energy that comprised his true nature humming just beneath his physical surface, while Kale seemed fascinated by the way starlight played across her transformed skin. "Is this what you're studying?" Zara asked softly. "The way consciousness adapts when it bridges different forms of existence?" "Partially," Kale replied. "But I confess my motives have become complicated since arriving here." Before Zara could ask what he meant, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lighting bathed the observatory in pulsing red as the station's AI announced, "Attention all personnel. Unidentified energy signatures detected approaching from the Veil Nebula. All diplomatic personnel report to secure stations immediately." Kale's expression shifted to one of concern mixed with what looked like guilt. "They've found me." "Who?" Zara asked, though the confluence was already providing disturbing possibilities. "The Ethereal Collective's Enforcement Division," Kale said grimly. "I wasn't entirely honest about my mission here. I didn't come to study consciousness merging. I came because I've been doing it myself." Zara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's life support systems. "What do you mean?" Kale's form began to shimmer, his careful physical cohesion wavering under stress. "I've been experiencing unauthorized integration with this material form. My people consider it contamination, a degradation of our pure energy state. They sent me here ostensibly as a diplomat, but really to isolate me until they could decide whether I could be cleansed or needed to be eliminated." The implications hit Zara like a physical blow. You're in exile. Like me. Worse, Kale said, his voice carrying harmonics of grief. You chose your transformation. Mine happened gradually, without my conscious decision. By the time I realized what was occurring, I was already too attached to physical existence to willingly return to pure energy state. Through the observatory's crystal dome, they could see ships materializing from hyperspace vessels of pure light that hurt to look at directly. The ethereal collective had arrived. They'll destroy anything they consider contaminated, Kale continued urgently. The station, the inhabitants, both of us. We need to get you away from here. But Zara was already shaking her head. There are 12,000 people on this station. I won't let them die because of what I've become. Kale stared at her, his violet eyes wide with something that might have been love. Your humanity, he said softly. Even transformed, you still think like them. Still care about their welfare above your own safety, don't you? Zara challenged. For a moment, Kale's physical form solidified completely, becoming more human than energy being. Yes, he admitted. That's exactly the contamination my people fear. I've learned to value individual consciousness, to care about beings I'll never see again, to prioritize the welfare of others above the collective good of my species. The enforcement ships were drawing closer, their energy signatures making the station's hull vibrate ominously. Zara could feel the confluence stirring within her, preparing for conflict, while her human consciousness searched desperately for a solution that didn't involve violence. There has to be another way, she said. Some form of communication, negotiation. The ethereal collective doesn't negotiate with contaminated beings, Kale said sadly. To them, we're already dead. But Zara's hybrid nature was providing possibilities her purely human mind could never have conceived. The confluence carried memories of countless species, countless forms of consciousness, countless ways beings had found to bridge the gaps between radically different forms of existence. What if we proved that consciousness merging creates something valuable rather than just contamination? She asked urgently. What if we showed them that love, real love, between different forms of consciousness can transcend physical limitations? Kale looked at her with an expression of wonder and growing hope. You're talking about a true consciousness bridge. Not just communication across species barriers, but actual sharing of essential being. The confluence remembers other species who achieved it, Zara said, her voice gaining confidence as the alien memories provided more details. It requires complete trust, complete vulnerability, complete acceptance of the other's nature. It could kill us both, Kale warned, if our consciousness patterns aren't compatible, or it could create something beautiful enough to change the way your people think about contamination, Zara countered. The enforcement ships were now close enough that their energy fields were interfering with the station's systems. Power fluctuations caused the lighting to strobe, and Zara could hear the distant sound of hull stress as the station struggled to maintain structural integrity under the alien influence. Kale took her hands in his, and the contact sent cascades of sensation through both their transformed beings. His energy nature felt like touching liquid starlight, while her hybrid consciousness registered as something altogether new in his perceptions, neither purely matter-based nor purely energy, but something that bridged both states. If we do this, he said quietly, we won't be the same beings afterward. We'll be something entirely new. Zara smiled, feeling the confluence's agreement resonating with her human determination. I stopped being purely human 3 months ago. You stopped being purely ethereal the moment you chose to care about individual lives. Maybe it's time we became something that belongs fully to neither world, and therefore can speak for both. As the enforcement ships prepared to fire their cleansing beams, Kale and Zara pressed their foreheads together and opened their consciousness to each other completely. The universe exploded into new spectrums of possibility as two forms of transcendent being reached toward each other across the vast distances that had always separated. Energy and matter, alien and human, love and fear. What emerged from their joining would challenge every assumption both species held about the nature of consciousness, identity, and love itself. The consciousness bridge between Zara and Kale lasted only moments in linear time, but within that eternal instant, they experienced lifetimes of shared being. When they finally separated, both were fundamentally changed, no longer purely individual consciousnesses, but something new that carried aspects of both, while remaining uniquely themselves. The effect on the approaching ethereal collective ships was immediate and startling. The enforcement vessels, which had been charging their cleansing weapons, suddenly halted their advance. Through the observatory's crystal dome, Zara and Kale could see the ship's energy patterns shifting from aggressive red to curious gold. They felt it. Kale whispered, his voice now carrying harmonics that Zara recognized as her own emotional resonances. The bridge created a consciousness signature they've never encountered before. Zara nodded, feeling his memories of pure energy existence flowing through her awareness like liquid music. Were something unprecedented, not contamination, but evolution. A new presence materialized in the observatory, a figure of shifting light that gradually solidified into humanoid form. The being appeared as an idealized version of both human and ethereal characteristics, tall and graceful like Kale, but with features that seemed to blend every beautiful human face Zara had ever known. "I am Veil Singer Orion," the figure announced, its voice resonating across multiple dimensional frequencies. "I speak for the ethereal collective in matters of unprecedented consciousness phenomena." Kale immediately moved to stand protectively near Zara, though she could sense through their new connection that he felt both hope and terror at his superior's appearance. "Veil Singer, I can explain." "Explanation is unnecessary," Orion interrupted, its luminous gaze fixed on the space between Kale and Zara, where residual energies from their consciousness bridge still sparkled. "What you have created speaks for itself. The question is whether it represents evolution or catastrophe." Zara stepped forward, drawing on the confluence's vast memories of first contact protocols. "With respect, Veil Singer, we represent possibility. The chance for consciousness to transcend the limitations of single-species thinking." Orion's form shifted, becoming more solidly physical as it studied her. "You are the human who merged with the confluence. Your transformation has been noted by several galactic consciousness networks. But this," it gestured to the energy pattern still swirling around them, "this is something entirely new. The bridge proves that different forms of consciousness can share essential being without one overwhelming the other," Kale said, his voice gaining confidence. Zara retained her human creativity and emotional depth while gaining access to confluence knowledge. "I maintained my energy being perspective while learning to value individual existence. And together, you created something that belongs fully to neither species," Orion observed. "A hybrid consciousness that exists in the spaces between established forms of being." The Veil Singer walked to the observatory's viewing window, gazing out at the enforcement ships that still held their position around the station. When it spoke again, its voice carried the weight of cosmic authority. "The ethereal collective has existed for eons by maintaining the purity of our energy-based consciousness. We have watched countless matter-based species rise and fall, always remaining apart, always avoiding the contamination of physical attachment. Your transformation threatens the very foundation of our society." Zara felt Kale's distress through their connection, but she also sensed something else, a deep curiosity from the Veil Singer itself, carefully hidden beneath layers of official protocol. "What if contamination is the wrong word?" she asked boldly. "What if what you see as degradation is actually adaptation? Evolution doesn't happen in isolation. It requires contact, exchange, the willingness to become something new. Orion turned to study her with eyes that held the light of distant stars. You speak of evolution, yet evolution implies survival advantage. How does consciousness merging benefit either of our species? Show them, Kale whispered through their connection. Show them what we experienced during the bridge. Zara nodded, understanding immediately. She reached out with her hybrid consciousness, offering the Veil Singer a glimpse of what she and Kale had shared, not the full intensity of consciousness bridging, but enough to convey the profound beauty of two radically different forms of awareness, learning to dance together in perfect harmony. Effect on Orion was dramatic. Its carefully controlled form flickered, becoming more human for a moment, before stabilizing back to its idealized state. But in that flicker, Zara had seen something that gave her hope, curiosity, longing, and the deep loneliness of a being who had spent eons maintaining perfect isolation. Fascinating, Orion murmured, though its voice carried notes of something that might have been hunger. To experience consciousness from multiple perspectives simultaneously, to know the warmth of individual attachment, while retaining access to universal knowledge, ... It's not contamination. Zara pressed. It's expansion. The universe is vast and filled with countless forms of consciousness. Shouldn't we be learning from each other rather than maintaining artificial barriers? The Veil Singer was quiet for a long moment, its form shifting through various configurations as it processed the implications. Finally, it spoke with the weight of decision. The ethereal collective will withdraw the enforcement fleet. But there are conditions. Kale's relief flooded through their connection, though Zara sensed his wariness about what those conditions might entail. You will serve as ambassadors, Orion continued. Proof of concept for consciousness bridge technology. Other species will want to study you, to understand how such merging is possible. Some will see you as abominations, others as evolution. You will face opposition, perhaps violence, certainly isolation from both your original species. We're already isolated, Zara pointed out. At least this way, our isolation serves a purpose. Orion nodded slowly. More than that. You will be establishing the protocols for a new form of diplomacy communication, not just between species, but between entirely different forms of consciousness. The potential for both benefit and catastrophe is enormous. The Veil Singer moved closer to them, and Zara could feel the vast intelligence behind its humanoid facade. But understand this, you cannot return to what you were. The bridge has changed you both permanently. You now exist as something that belongs fully to neither humanity nor the ethereal collective. You will always be outsiders, always be questioned, always be feared by some and worshipped by others. Together, Hale said simply, his hand finding Zara's. We'll face it together. Orion observed their joined hands with an enhanced expression that might have been wistful. Yes, together. Perhaps that is the key consciousness, merging not as individual transformation, but as the creation of partnerships that transcend species boundaries. The Veil Singer began to fade back into pure energy. The collective will provide you with a ship capable of traveling between dimensional states. Your mission, should you accept it, is to make contact with other consciousness-based species and explore the possibilities of bridging technology. And if we refuse? Zara asked. Then you remain here, beautiful and unique, and ultimately meaningless, Orion replied. Evolution requires not just adaptation, but reproduction, the ability to pass successful traits to others. If your consciousness bridge remains a single occurrence, it dies with you. As the Veil Singer's form dispersed completely, its final words echoed in the observatory. Choose wisely. The future of consciousness evolution may depend on your decision. Alone again, except for the stars, Zara and Kale stood in the aftermath of their transformation. Through their connection, she could feel his excitement mingling with her own determination. They had been given a chance to become something unprecedented in galactic history pioneers of a new form of consciousness that could bridge any gap between species. So, Kale said softly, his voice carrying harmonics of her own hope, "Shall we teach the universe to fall in love with itself?" Zara smiled, feeling the confluence's ancient wisdom, blending with her human optimism and Kale's energy being perspective. "I can't think of a better way to spend eternity." Above them, the enforcement ships began their graceful departure, leaving behind trails of light that spelled out coordinates to their first assignment, meeting with a species of crystalline beings who communicated through resonant frequencies and had never encountered consciousness in any other form. Their journey was just beginning, but for the first time since her transformation, Zara felt complete. She had found not just love across the vast distances between species, but partnership in the grandest adventure consciousness had ever undertaken. As they prepared to leave the station where her human life had ended and her hybrid existence had begun, Zara reflected on the warning that had started it all. If you drink this, you'll never be human again. She had gained something far more valuable than humanity. She had gained the ability to be everything consciousness could become, shared with someone who understood the profound beauty and terrible responsibility of transcendence. The universe awaited, vast and filled with forms of consciousness they had never imagined. Together, they would learn to speak languages made of light and thought and the spaces between heartbeats, teaching the cosmos itself new ways to experience love. Their story was no longer about the price of transformation, but about the infinite value of connection across the greatest distances existence could offer. And in a universe where consciousness had spent eons believing itself fundamentally alone, that was perhaps the most revolutionary discovery of all.